Hello, and welcome to the Scott Mize Show, a podcast focused on health, diet, bodybuilding, and philosophy. I interview experts, doctors, coaches, and N=1 case studies to answer your questions about improving health, achieving your best physique, and making sustainable progress. We'll cover topics from carnivore and ketogenic diets, to bodybuilding, to life philosophy, and everything in between. Enjoy the show. Are you looking to lose fat, gain muscle, or improve your health, or all of the above? Interested in working with me one-on-one? Stop spinning your wheels, because I offer personalized coaching where I can help you reach your goals, whether it be fat loss, muscle building, improving your health, or all of the above. I provide tailored nutrition, training, and supplementation advice, one or all of them together, with 24/7 ongoing support to help guide you every step of the way. You can email me at scott.mize@gmail.com. Click the link in the description of this episode to schedule your free consult call to go over your goals, answer questions with no obligation. Let's take your physique or health journey to the next level. This episode is brought to you by LMNT Electrolytes. This month, we're switching it up with an exclusive offer that's only for VIP LMNT partners, including Carnivore Cast listeners. You can now receive this free sample pack along with any regular purchase when you use my custom link, which is provided in the show notes or my Instagram link in bio. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, all one word. And as I said, I'll include the link in the show notes. LMNT electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious. And get yours today to help support the show. Thank you. Olivia Khwaja is a consumer strategist and marketing expert for large brands for the last 20 plus years. She's a board trustee for the Public Health Collaboration in the UK and is passionate about empowering the younger generation to make informed decisions about their own health with her Instagram page at real_food_kids and Facebook page, Real Food Carnivore Kids. She's a passionate advocate of low-carb, keto, and carnivore diets. Welcome to the show, Olivia.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. So I'd love to just start with your story. The long version is great. How did you become interested in low-carb diets, and what was your health journey to get there?
Yeah, I often say I was not at all from the nutritional space, so it's quite unusual and a bit of a surprise that I'm kind of doing this kind of thing these days. But yeah, my background is all in businesses, and I was in the business world for a good 22 or so years, and very much was kind of thriving and enjoying it for the most part. It did get to a point, obviously it's always kind of a high pressure kind of environment to be in, which generally was okay, but it did get to a point where I felt quite a lot of burnout, and it was somewhat related to my parents both being ill and passing away over kind of a long period of time, and me deciding to have some time out from all of the pressure and to just think about life a little bit. So I decided to take some kind of voluntary redundancy, as we call it here, and get some perspective on life. And so I did that. And one of the things I had on my things to do if I'm ever not working was to look into nutrition, because my parents passed away from illnesses that I thought I couldn't really avoid getting. But I thought if I did some research, maybe I'd find something which could reduce the risk or the severity of it somehow. And my dad had Alzheimer's. My mum had various issues, including type 2 diabetes. And I just assumed I was done for. I was gonna get them, and that was nothing I can pretty much do about it. But yeah, maybe diet could have some impact. And so I started researching it, and as soon as I did, it didn't actually take me very long to figure out that actually there's quite a lot you can do, not just to de-risk the chances of getting these diseases, but to potentially like eradicate the risk pretty much. And that was a really mind-blowing revelation to find out, having nursed my parents, myself along with my siblings, for a good decade, and watched them deteriorate from very capable people. My dad was a pilot, and really was very kind of alert and active, going from that to really a shell of a person that he was once he had full-blown Alzheimer's. So it was a very big revelation, and very shocking to find out that there are ways to if not completely change that direction, but certainly slow it down. which we were never aware of and we were never told about. And we certainly gave him all of the Alzheimer's drugs that were available and that we were prescribed, and just thought that that was his best chance. But actually, there was so much in diet that we could have done for both my parents, especially type 2 diabetes, which is, obviously so reversible these days. And so it really frustrated me that that can be the case. And so many people unaware of it. And I didn't consider myself, someone who was, lacking in awareness in anything. I thought I had pretty good general knowledge about different topics and current affairs and politics, and kept up to date with all of the recent trends. But for this to be something so important, so fundamental to our kind of quality and quantity of life, and be, there in plain sight, but just not really obvious enough or clear enough for people to really understand it and do anything with it, it felt like a real lack of, an environment where there's just so much misinformation that it just needs someone to help bring that message to the fore and to explain it properly and to present it properly. And my background being in business in particular, I was always kind of involved in kind of the marketing side of the business. It felt like I could do something in this space to just try and raise this message a little bit and maybe help with that big challenge. And around the same time I was thinking all these thoughts, there was an advertisement from the charity that I'm now involved in, and who are very much who exist mainly to educate people about metabolic health and to change people's health. And they were looking for people who had kind of a commercial marketing background. So it felt like, some kind of serendipitous situation, and I just went for it and was able to secure that position. So so that's kind of my journey into this space, into this world of nutrition, which I love learning more and more about every day, even though I'm not from a science background. And also at the same time, I went on my own personal journey. So I was running along one day, doing all this research, and I had this moment when Dr. Eric Berg, who's one of the main people you kind of stumble across at the beginning of a bit of keto research or diet research, said something like, good luck burning fat if you have sugar in your blood. And at that moment, I was like doing a sprint finish on a 7-mile run. And I literally had to stop sprinting because it suddenly hit me that I'd not understood something very fundamental. I mean, I'd heard of the keto diet, I kind of knew what it was about, but I hadn't quite understood that meant that it wasn't still about calories. And I still, used to, and I had to stop and think, well, I've just had a massive smoothie before my run full of oats and bananas, and I always thought that was the right thing to do to get me started for the day. And is that why I never lose weight and I run every single day for 7 miles? And so I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, and carried on researching. But within a week, I was fully keto, and then I was on keto for about a couple of years or so, and then continued to research, started to understand a lot more about the carnivore diet, and so then progressed onto that about 16 months ago now. And had just been thriving every step of the way. So it's been such a life-changing journey in so many ways, both from a career point of view, personal point of view, an emotional point of view. But it's all positive and just gives me lots of hope for other people as well that I see that need to go on a similar journey or could benefit from it. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to this point talking to you.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And I can relate to a lot of what you're saying because this isn't a career for me. I've spent my whole life in the business world, and nutrition is definitely not something that's talked about, and not something that's prioritized at all. No. Can you talk about like how you saw the perception of nutrition, even among like your colleagues, but in the corporate environment in general? And do you think that's changing at all?
Yeah, it's interesting to think back to it, but the corporate environment, I mean, there's just no understanding of nutrition. And, if anything, companies are like, so the company I worked for used to supply free fruit and vegetables, or free fruit anyway, into the office every day. So I guess there's always that kind of subtle reminder that that's what you should be eating. But then you have, colleagues that bring in cupcakes, and you have, a canteen, which is just stacked with all the wrong stuff, but some of it which looks like the right stuff, like protein bars and all of these energy bars. And but then you'll have all of the nonsense to go with it, and croissants and that kind of thing. So when you're in a high pressure role, I just don't think you have the mental capacity to think about it. You're just on the go all the time, and it's really about how do you fuel yourself to get through the day and through to the next set of meetings. And coffee is another big one that everyone uses to prop themselves up from late nights and early starts and all of that kind of thing. I mean, there's just no consideration for it at all. And even now, these days, when I'm on LinkedIn, I can see a lot of my colleagues have moved onto other roles, and I see some of them work in really big roles. In, like, one of them's the head of Subway, which is the the kind of the big sandwich business, and other ones in McDonald's, and other ones in all these industries that I don't know if they even know what that is doing in big societies, kind of from that perspective. I don't think they do, because they're very proud of what they're doing. But when I have taken a step away from it all and look back at it, I'm luckily I wasn't in an industry that was directly involved in nutrition, but just looking at those same ex-colleagues of mine doing all of those roles, and sometimes advertising for roles, and me thinking, gosh, I could never do that. I could never work in that. I could never support anything to do with big food and big pharma anymore, and processed food, and nobody knows about it, and everyone's very, very open about these great opportunities that are coming up. And I just think, gosh, we've got so far to go. These are some the most intelligent people probably that I've met in my lifetime, and they're still not even aware of all of this. So yeah, we have a long way to go to change the everyday culture, I think, of the perception of food.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I was in it felt like, just like you said, food was fuel, something to get you through the day. And also just like people were looking for dopamine hits. Like, they were so entrenched and so stressed and so busy with their work. It was like, ooh, let me have a cupcake. Let me have a piece of candy. Let me have a cookie. Like, just basically trying to find something to distract themselves or reward themselves, and like stuck in this loop of viewing food as like the only source of enjoyment while you're working. It's quite sad, actually.
It is. That's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the journey totally changes your relationship with food. I mean, you just see it as nutrition, and anything else to me now seems like that's an unhealthy relationship to have. But the culture out there is not there yet. That's not how people see food. Food is about reward. It's about enjoyment. So yeah, we've got a long way to go.
Absolutely. And I'm very familiar with the PCHUK, PHCUK, excuse me, and Sam Feltham. But for listeners who may not be familiar, can you talk about what it is, what the mission is, and your work there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Public Health Collaboration UK is a charity, a non-profit organisation that was started around 2016 by Sam Feltham, and is an organisation that is just purely here to help people understand the importance and the significance of metabolic health, and to move towards eating real food. And there's not that many charities that are in this space. There's many kind of nutrition charities, but they tend to all be aligned to some of the more mainstream ways of looking at nutrition. So the way we look at nutrition is very much about real food, and for people who have metabolic illnesses, to consider low carbohydrate diets, particularly for type 2 diabetes and many other metabolic illnesses. And we have it's a very small charity at this point. We're growing though, and we've got lots of ambitions. But Sam is our CEO, and we have a board of trustees, and we all joined over a year ago now. And or certainly at least 10 of us out of the total board, and everyone's come from a very different perspective and very different background. So a real mixed expertise, which is really a strength for how we move forward. And we've been using the last year to really strategize what we need to be doing, and how we want to play in this space, how we want to affect change. And we very much are all in agreement that this is about educating people about metabolic health. You may be aware of David Unwin, who's our chair of our scientific advisory committee, on which there's many other scientific PHC members, doctors, and they're all very much from our NHS system in the UK, which is our public healthcare system, and they all are very much in agreement about this being the way that we need to look at health, preventative lifestyle health. And so everyone's very passionate, very much in agreement what we need to do. What we have at the moment is some particular services that we're starting to offer. So we have developed a program called the Lifestyle Club, and this is an online course that we offer to the NHS, so 2 doctors in the NHS and 2 GP practices, to refer patients who are pre-diabetic or diabetic onto this course. We run the course, and then we're seeing some great results from people who've kind of come on it and understood about real food and nutrition and low carb, very much using the same approach that Dr. Unwin himself has started using in his practice, and has seen about 130 patients reverse their type 2 diabetes so far in his own just one practice. So this is a service that we're rolling out, and then that's one of the kind of the major projects that we're also trying to make sure gets more funding and more take up across the whole of the NHS, because NHS is the whole of the UK, and we're still piloting this in a few specific geographic locations, but we're trying to fundraise at the moment for a study to verify the results of what we're finding so far in the pilot, and if that can be done, then it would be able to potentially roll it out across more places across the UK. So anyone who would like to help with that, we've got a GoFundMe on that, so I'm happy to kind of give you the details so you can link it through. But we need to have kind of verified results to show that low carb is much more superior than a low calorie approach, which is being taken everywhere else across the UK and in the NHS. So to treat type 2 diabetes. So that's one major area that we're delivering a service effectively. We also have a number of ambassadors across the UK, so over 200, basically volunteers, people who are very passionate about this and who really want to help with the cause. And they all are very much linked to the PHC, and they run sessions locally, education sessions, and they link in with the local GPs and try and get them to allow them to run sessions in their local practice, or do they just do it off their own back locally? And they're helping a lot of people as well. So it's great to have this kind of grassroots network of people that are out there, kind of following the PHC guidance and actually bringing people on board, literally on the ground. And then we have a project that we're working on around children and how we can stop children from having so much exposure, so much processed food in their diet. And that's something we're very, very passionate about. And I particularly am very passionate about changing, because we have to kind of stop this before the next generation gets totally addicted to sugar, and try and help kids, reverse their own obesity. So that's another project that we're running at the moment. We have an annual conference every year. So that's something which just happened in May. We've got a great YouTube channel where all the talks go up onto. So if anyone wants to follow us there, they'll see some great talks from Tim Noakes and Jason Fung and others that have come along in previous years. This year we had a really great conference in Sheffield, and we haven't released any of the talks yet. So if you follow us, then you'll know when we're releasing those. One of them in particular was a discussion between 2 plant based advocates and 2 meat advocates, and an open discussion and debate about which is the preferred diet for across different criteria, and that was a really popular segment of the conference that they got a lot out of. So that will be one of the things that we release as well. So and there were great debates about environment and about cancer and about type 2 diabetes and mental health, and that really is our main event of the year. So we're currently starting to plan 2024s, which is exciting, and we'll hopefully release some information soon. But in the meantime, it would be good for people to kind of look out for the talks from this year's. So yeah, lots going on with the public health collaboration.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're doing fantastic work, and I think the research side is so critical to advancing this way of eating in the common narrative and widespread both media and medical community. I'm curious, do you collaborate at all with either the Nutrition Coalition in the U.S., which is a very similar organization, Nina Teicholz, or Verta Health, because I know they're publishing a lot of research around low carb for type 2 diabetes?
We don't have a formal relationship with Nutrition Coalition, but we're very close to Nina and the work that she's doing. We present at each other's kind of conferences and events, that type of thing. And she's always keeping us up to date with what's going on. She's come to our conference, I think, last year. Last year. Verta Health, we've talked to, but we don't have anything kind of formal going with them. And we're also talking to other organizations really similar to ours, like the SMHP and Low Carb USA organization in the US, Low Carb Down Under in Australia. So there's a lot more opportunity if we to kind of join forces with the same entities in all these countries that are doing the same thing, because it's not really confined to any particular country. This is something which is across the whole world and across certainly English-speaking world at the moment, in terms of the information that people gravitate towards. In the UK, you'll easily pick up probably most of the US influencers if you're trying to work your way through low carb content, and vice versa. So we have, I think, more people following us from the US than from the UK at the moment, PHC. So there is no geographical kind of boundary to any of this. So yeah, the more we can collaborate with others, the more it makes sense to do that and to try and elevate each other's messages and share each other's content. And so that's very much on the books for us to be doing more of moving forwards.
Yeah, the problems and issues, as well as the solutions, are fairly ubiquitous, I think, across the world, especially the Western world.
And so simple. Like when you realize what the answer is to so many things, you think it's not like there's 20 answers. There's really just one answer, just to change your diet in a very simple way. Not saying it's easy, but it's not complicated.
Yeah, it's very easy on the individual level. It's very hard to get into the very complex narrative and get mind share around it. And I'm very sorry to hear about your parents, by the way. That's very, very tough. Can you talk about like how low carb has helped you and maybe your evolution with it, in terms of keto, carnivore, and how that's changed for you over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely started with low carb. And I mean, even before that, I was always quite passionate about real food. So very, very rarely, a very long time ago, before we had anything that was processed, like as a meal. We'd have snacks, but that again would try and be healthy. But yeah, still had, was still very kind of overweight. And when I had this kind of moment with Dr. Berg, seminal moment, and moved to low carb, it was very quickly that I lost about 30 kilos or something, as much as that. And so it was a big, long journey of really understanding, what is the relevance of seed oils in the mix, and what's the relevance of, different versions of the diet, and bringing the carbs further down and further down and further down, and learning my own hunger signals, and moving towards, much more kind of a clean keto way of eating. But once I understood it, I was just kind of constantly just improving it as much as possible. And I think I started off with probably a few of the keto snacks and things to kind of get me through the day, just when you're first coming off, but very quickly realized those are just pointless and you don't need them once you've weaned yourself off the sugar addiction. And so I'm glad that I dropped all of those and very quickly became a clean keto eater. and with carnivore, it was a funny transition, because I kept researching it and it was intriguing to me. I remember stumbling upon Paul Saladino, I think, to start with, and the stuff he was saying was like beyond what I could understand, in terms of like, what is so bad about linoleic acid, and what are you talking about, plants aren't good for you? It doesn't make any sense at all. And I tried like at least 3 or 4 times to listen to him and try and understand what he was talking about, but it just seemed too off the wall. And so I kind of didn't do anything with it for quite a while. And then it wasn't until I heard it presented in a different light, which is that it's the right diet for us. It's the right species appropriate diet, that we should be reducing our vegetables and being more meat heavy. And that changed my perspective on it, because up until then I didn't think there was any need for me to try carnivore, because I had lost all this weight and I felt great, and it felt like I was at the pinnacle of optimal health. I just hadn't realized there was another level to go. And so when it was described to me as a diet that is appropriate for human beings, then I thought, well, maybe then I should try it, because even though I don't have all the issues I hear other people solving, maybe there's still something in it. So I thought I'll try it for a month. And I did that. And then within a couple of weeks, I knew that there was something significantly superior, even with having been on clean keto for a couple of years. And I just woke up one day and felt like, oh my goodness, it was the mental health that really hit me, because I didn't have a mental health issue as far as I was aware. But I suddenly woke up one day and I just felt this euphoria towards everything. And I was just looking around going, I'm just so happy. I feel so positive. I want to help the world. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I just didn't feel like there was a cloud hanging over me, which I hadn't really even felt like before. But then when it was lifted, I kind of realized there was something there, because now I felt so different. So that was kind of very surprising. And then I remember my athletic performance changed. I work out every day, and I normally do some kind of hard cardio to start with. And I used to cycle up a mountain on a virtual bike, on a bike which has got a virtual kind of setting up a mountain. And I suddenly I think within maybe 2 weeks of being on carnivore, I halved my time doing the same mountain that I'd been doing for years, at least a couple of years. And suddenly I thought there was something wrong with the bike. I thought there's something gone wrong here. And then I realized I was just full of energy, and I just couldn't contain it. And I just felt so different, like in every single way physiologically. I noticed that when I was stretching, or I didn't stretch for a few days, and I noticed that didn't have any impact. I'd normally have tight muscles, but my muscles didn't have any soreness anymore. And then in my body, I just felt very different. My hair, I started to lose some, but then it grew back really much thicker. My nails were stronger. I had this weird thing on my toe, a toenail fungus that had been there for about 15 years or something, because I used to run a lot. And that one day, and I'd tried every product to get rid of this stupid fungus. And I'd spent a fortune on it. And then with all these different treatments. And then one day I woke up and I remember just looking at my toes and going, they've just gone. The fungus that I had there just disappeared. So that was mind blowing as well. And yeah, so many little things like that. And, skin tags, they disappeared. My eyes got whiter, my teeth got whiter. And you just think, well, there's something clearly to this, because it wasn't like I've coming from the best diet possible that you could have before being on carnivore, I've still noticed such significant uplifts in everything, mentally and physically. So that, the whole kind of hypothesis of this being a species appropriate diet for me just felt like 100% correct, because I haven't felt like this before. And I've heard the story countless times ever since across the carnivore community. And I'm very involved in a couple of particular communities, and everyone's saying it all the time. And you just think, is everyone just lying? I don't think so. I think there's something very powerful about this. And the more people hearing about it, the more it's just going to precipitate and become more known. And even in the year that I've been doing it, I've really noticed an influx of people who've had all of these such horrendous conditions that they've been living with their whole life, and that they've had to reconcile in their heads that they're never going to have cured, that suddenly just disappeared. It sounds too good if anything, that is a disadvantage. It almost sounds too good to be true, because people just look at you and go, well, you're some weird conspiracy wacko that's come along with this cure to everything. It doesn't make any sense, which I totally understand. But unfortunately, we are in this position where we've got this amazing solution that helps so many people. And I think over time it will spread, and it's so powerful that people will have to take notice of it. And we're seeing a lot more people attack it as well, which I think is a good sign, because that means people are hearing about it and feeling like they have to respond if they're in a different camp of some sort in the diet space. So I think it's just going to continue to grow. And I've loved being part of kind of helping grow that community and talking to people every day with these amazing stories. It's just so rewarding to hear it.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's becoming more and more mainstream. And like you said, I think that's a great point. Seeing like different mainstream media sources responding to and talking about the carnivore diet, even if it's all negative, it shows like how ubiquitous it's becoming, and how much it's becoming known, and like people are asking about it. As long as people are asking about it and like seeking out answers, I think inevitably they're going to find hopefully good sources of information, like the Public Health Collaboration and others. Where this has been great, Olivia. Thank you so much for your time. It's great to learn more about you, your story, your work with the PHCUK. Where can folks find out more about you, follow along? And I'll also get that GoFundMe link as well, for the study that's going on. But yeah, where else would you like to direct people?
PHC is on all the social media platforms. So you can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And on Twitter and Instagram, we are PHCUK.org, all in one go. And our website has lots of resources on it. You've got infographics that are from David Unwin on teaspoons of sugar. They're great for kids to kind of do little games with, and something that we've seen a lot of people respond to with how their kids have reacted to those. So lots of resources on our website as well, phcuk.org. And then our YouTube channel has loads of talks on it. So and that's Public Health Collaboration. So that's PHC. I'll send you the link for the GoFundMe, so it's easy for people. And then I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Olivia Khwaja. And my son actually has a little channel going on Instagram as well, and he's making little recipes up and showing people what he's doing. So he's under Real Food Kids on Instagram.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I'll have links to all of that in the show notes. Thanks so much for your time, Olivia. Really pleasure learning more about you, and I think the listeners will really love this too.
That's great. Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Thank you for listening to the show. You can find The Scott Mize Show on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please leave a comment, like, review, or share the podcast with your friends or followers. It helps more people find the show.